Waiting for games is something that a lot of us are very familiar with. Oftentimes games get announced and a wait ensues that is typically anywhere from 2 years all the way up to 5 years plus. It gets tiresome depending on what kind of game it is. You can only be excited for so long before the games start to just feel like they don't exist anymore. That is, unless that gap is filled with something else, or a number of things. This is basically a long-winded way of saying that it's never been a better time to be a fan of Insomniac Games. Studios that are largely consistent in making top-tier video game projects for decades are far and few between. And when it's happening, people notice. It's not like Insomniac's talent is a secret. They've been recognized as a great developer since Spyro the Dragon was in the zeitgeist, but as of Sony's last showcase, I think everybody's acknowledging it. When PlayStation 5 was about to launch, we knew Insomniac was doing most of the heavy lifting on the launch lineup. Yes, Spiderman Remastered seemed like a simple project, but they gave it more than just a simple facelift, and it was a very strong showcase of what the PS5 technology might bring early in the generation. That launching alongside Miles Morales with its own technical advancements was a great way to start the generation off. But it didn't stop there. All within the span of a couple weeks, 1 month post-launch of the PS5, Insomniac added a third graphical option to both Spider-Man games, allowing for both 60 FPS and ray tracing to function under one setting. It seemed like whenever you were hearing about Insomniac, it was only good news. They're just on top of it. In early 2020, Sony announced the acquisition of Insomniac Games for the price tag of $229 million, which on all accounts is a highway robbery. Out of all the 28 games that have been developed by Insomniac since 1996, only 5 of them have been available off of a PlayStation platform. This purchase by Sony was bound to happen at some point, and some might even say it should have happened a long time ago. When talking about which studios are most valuable to the PlayStation brand, there are many that belong in that discussion. Insomniac doesn't have to have far and away the best games on the platform to hold this spot. And as of right now, it's still hard for me to give that spot to anyone besides Naughty Dog for their industry-leading games that become the benchmark for what's possible every time they release something. However, you have to wait a very long time in between Naughty Dog's projects. They may make some of the best games depending on who you ask, but what is more valuable? The studio that sets the benchmark every time they release a project, or the studio that gets close but releases games on a much more frequent basis? I think most would agree it's the latter. Thankfully we can have both, but some studios are entering Naughty Dog's orbit, and it's getting exciting. Something is going on at Insomniac that needs to be looked at. Their workflow is impressive. Clearly they have something figured out. After Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart was first shown, it was clear Insomniac was trying their best to use the new features of the PS5 to their fullest. Coming up with creative ways to use the DualSense or utilizing the SSD to, as of right now, its full potential with going between rifts. There hadn't been a new mainline Ratchet & Clank game in close to 10 years, so excitement levels were high. And they seem to have delivered on not only a great comeback for the beloved platformer duo, but an impressive showcase on all accounts of what's currently possible with the PS5. Ratchet's launch and post-support was expected to be the last we heard of Insomniac Games for quite some time. After all, they did just release 3 games in the first 12 months of the PS5's lifecycle, but apparently they had different plans in mind. There were very high expectations for Sony's summer showcase. We hadn't heard from them in a big way since the Future Games showcase in 2020. Sony has everything to show. It was expected to be a no-bloat 40-minute showcase of the best they have to offer, and while it did get filled with quite a bit of third-party promotion, the last 10 minutes or so were quite stacked. There was no reason for Insomniac to appear here, nor did anybody need them to. Sony currently has enough up their sleeves to fill a showcase without them, and then appears the Marvel logo. Wolverine is a superhero game that can be just different enough from Spider-Man to not get too exhausted of the superhero genre in games, although it seems we are just beginning. Not much was shown, of course, however the trailer is littered with Easter eggs with hints of what's to come. What's worth noting about this game being announced is that Marvel has really placed their trust in Insomniac, which is a huge bonus for Sony post-acquisition. Insomniac looks to be the premier studio for Marvel content, and so far they've knocked it out of the park. I'm hoping it's not all we get from them outside of Ratchet, as they've made some very creative games in the past. I still think there's a lot more to be done with Sunset Overdrive as an IP as well. But Insomniac slowly building out the Marvel universe on their own so far is proving to be a worthy idea. Combined with the movies and marketing Marvel brings, Sony inadvertently won big here, even if the Wolverine deal was secured earlier on. Hopefully they keep it to only a couple teams rather than tasking Sony's other first-party studios to join the push. As awesome as the Marvel games can be, we still need other first parties working on original ideas of their own, but I won't complain if a shang-chi game is in the works. As if the Wolverine announcement wasn't enough of a surprise, they decide we also need a taste of what's coming in Spider-Man 2. I think people are really jumping to conclusions with this one. Why is it that just because there's a dual takedown between Peter and Miles that all of a sudden people are confirming it to be a co-op game? How many games do we know that have takedowns with your NPC companions in it? It would be incredibly hard to make Spider-Man 2 a co-op game from beginning to end. They would have to craft the entire narrative around it. Peter and Miles can't be together at all times. How would it work when one person just starts swinging off to the other side of New York City? To do what? Progress without you? Anyways, I'm getting off topic. Spider-Man 2 is looking great. The entire trailer was actually in-game and showed some suit changes specifically related to color a lot of people were clamoring for. And at long last, we get the reveal of Venom and Kraven the Hunter. Venom being voiced by the original actor for Candyman, Tony Todd, who is an excellent choice post whatever the heck this is.
And eat both your arms and then both of your legs, and then we will eat your face right off your head. Do you understand?
You serious?
Now, we don't have a release window for Wolverine, and Spider-Man 2 looks to arrive on PS5 in 2023. But the point is this. Insomniac moves quick and at no expense to the quality of their games. So while you wait for the sequel to Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, the gaps are filled in with Spider-Man and Wolverine. And at this point, the Ratchet sequel could be announced and playable in a week, and I'm not even sure I would be surprised anymore. Every studio and creative team in all mediums have a different workflow and rate at which they get things done. One size will never fit all when it comes to the optimization of developing games, but I have to wonder, would there be any value in Ted Price or whomever else is steering the ship at Insomniac Games to take a look at Sony's other first-party studios and see if there's any room for improvement in smaller areas? Not everyone can make games in a shorter amount of time when they're aiming for the absolute pinnacle of game development every single time. I'm looking at you, Naughty Dog. But are there areas that could be improved? Maybe. It's not for me to say. But waiting 5 years for the follow-up to your favorite game can feel rough at times. I know we're all feeling it. And that waiting window seems to get longer each year. I'll be thinking about it for a while, and I feel like there has to be something of value that could happen there, so long as it isn't interrupting and harming each studio's creative vision. For that, I'll always happily wait. Insomniac Games are at the top of their game, and I think at this point in time, it's safe to say that they are currently Sony and PlayStation's most valuable studio. Thanks for watching, let me know what you all think.